Hi, colored pencil drawing students. How is everybody today? So I think you guys are going to like this. This is a lesson about leaves, and the technique we're going to use is impressed line. So first thing, you want to observe leaves and maybe take some pictures. You can go out and pick leaves or look online for photographs, and you want to observe the vein formation. So this is a leaf that has a long center line and lines going up the side. And there's a name for that. They're called pinnately compound. And then there's also the kind called palmately compound, where all the main veins go to one center area. And then you have like a geranium, which is rotate. So it's more circular. So you want to look at your leaves and choose some, and then you can work directly from real leaves or a little bouquet that you might have set up. A potted plant is another possibility. Here's a violet that I have, and I took pictures. So you can work directly from the plant, or you can take a picture with a light on it so you can get some nice shadows, cast shadows, if you want to include that in sort of more of a still life. Here's a photograph of the geraniums, and I put a black cloth behind it. Here, I'm going to move this. It was actually a jacket, a sort of a velvet jacket that I have, and that made the blossom stand out. And then I was able to put a side light on it to create a cast shadow, so that could be part of your composition. Little pieces of the petals that had fallen off. That would be a nice composition. Okay, so in this book, this is Color Drawing Workshop by Bette Borgeson, and she also has written the other book that I talked about in class, the colored pencil book. So she has you look at the leaves. In a previous video from last quarter, I posted it on Google Classroom. I showed how to do contour drawing, and then I also talked about gesture drawing. So we'll discuss that too. But on something like this, you don't need to be afraid to tackle a leaf that might be turning to the side or twisting. If you really just follow the edge of that leaf and really follow with your eyes as in contour drawing and see what that line is doing. If it, and try to focus more on the line and less on your paper, and you should be able to draw a leaf even if it's not perfectly flat. Okay, so on this, what they've done is they've put a piece of tissue or tracing paper over it and pushed over the leaf drawing and pushed hard with a ballpoint pen, and I like to use a red ballpoint pen so it really stands out. And then they've created a sort of an indentation on the leaf so that when they start to color it, the colored pencil will not go in those little grooves that are created by the hard pushing of the that was done with the tracing paper, or with the tracing paper, so that you can just gently rub your colored pencil over it and it'll kind of skip over those little channels. Okay, so here's another example, and here's the tracing paper over the drawing. So here's these negative shapes right here, and they've created a wonderful abstract linear design in the negative space. Okay, so it can be used as a decorative element also. It doesn't have to just be veins on leaves. It could be other things. This is Bette Borgeson's book, The Colored Pencil, and in this, she's created the lace by putting a lot of impressed line in the areas that are going to stay white, and then when she colored over it, it skipped over it. Here's one where she used an impressed line for the shines on the little seeds on the pomegranate. And here she is using the tracing paper and making the veins in the leaves here. So here's a demonstration in her book where she's doing a rabbit with some ivy leaves. And here's the tracing paper on top. And you can see she's making the indentations and then beginning to color in. And again, this is how she has done the finished product. In this photo, she's used a kneaded eraser to lift some little highlights there. So there's lots of different techniques being used, but we're going to focus on leaves and impressed line. Now, last quarter in the pencil drawing class, I took a sprig of leaves. These were from our fuyu tree, and I did first a gesture, which is kind of a fast, loose drawing. If you look at the reference here, and you just kind of do a quick drawing that shows placement and size and proportion. It's very, very light. And then once you have everything placed on the page for your composition, and we're looking at the main flow of the veins and the stems and so on, then you can very slowly start to draw the contours. So on this, you would slowly start to follow the edge as this is lifting up here and twisting down, and I'm pushing a little harder. Now this is a preliminary drawing, and notice that in this composition I've purposely included overlapping, because and you guys should be pretty good at overlapping now after last week's lesson. So it makes the composition more interesting than having these bullet holes, you know, everywhere that are separate. So it kind of keeps it more unified. So once I had finished the gesture and the contour, then I had this preliminary drawing. I took graphite paper, and I took my good clean paper that was ready to go, and I taped this on there, and then I slid the graphite paper in here with the pencil-y side down and traced over it so it transferred the drawing onto there. Now once I had done that, I then had a nice soft piece of a cushiony magazine under there, so that it will have a little more give when you do the leaf veins. So here let's see if I can line this up here. Looks like this is it. And I had my reference handy, or my real leaves nearby, whichever you're using. It's kind of nice to have a photo, because then as the leaves start to die, if you don't do it all on the same day, if you take your time, it gives you more time. So then I went over all of the veins with, it pushed really hard, and you can feel it. You can just feel where those are. And then once I had done that, then as I started to, whoops, I didn't actually, no, I didn't do that one. But once you start to lightly color in, whether it's graphite pencil or regular pencil, those white veins will stand out. So here's what I'm hoping that you'll do, is you'll choose leaves that are interesting to you, but I want you to look for leaves that have light colored veins. So this is the back side. You see how the veins are lighter than the body of the leaf. So this this violet would also work, because we have slightly lighter veins. But these maple leaves, and of course, It's the middle of winter, so we don't have as many leaves around, but the maple leaves worked out pretty good for this. So what I'm noticing is that the background color of the leaf, if you're leaving the veins lighter, is not exactly white. So these leaf veins are going to be like a pale green and a pale yellow. So what I decided I was going to do on my drawing, and I have started it right here, and this is what I've decided to do. And I decided to make it vertical. So I did my gesture and I did my contour, and now I'm ready to put my base coat down, because I noticed that these veins are like a light green and these veins are a pale yellow. So, and I had set these up with a side light, so I have some nice cast shadows that I can put in later to give it that trompe l'oeil or that fool the eye kind of feeling, like you could almost pick them up off the page. I changed the composition a little bit. I wanted to be careful that this line didn't go right to the corner of the page, the line of the stem, and I purposely overlapped them in a couple of places. So so that made it a little more interesting. And I could put some kind of a graphic border on it. But what this border is, and I suggest you guys do that, is before you start your drawing, and I'm just using 80-pound drawing paper, it's a nice heavy, is to take a ruler or in this case I used a corner, what do you call these things, a triangle, and I drew a little edge around it. And I'd like you to get into that habit before you do your final drawing on the good paper, is to give yourself a little edge. So if you do decide you want to frame something, the framer will have something to grab hold of and you won't be cropping into your composition. So you're designing your composition within that border. Okay, so I took some different greens, and I noticed that in this part of the leaf that the veins were more green, and then they got a little more yellow here. And on this one, they tend to be more white. So I'm just going to leave that one and not have a base coat. So this is basically the color of the veins here. And then I went ahead and did yellow as the color of the veins here. And I've erased all the little gesture drawings. I took a photo as I did the steps here, so I'll put them on the Google Classroom so you can see a little bit of the steps that were previously there. And you can kind of erase your graphite a little bit more, so you have that ghost image so you can see it, but it's not going to be real evident in the final drawing, because you don't want to have graphite showing. I was attentive to the fact that there's a little bit of a sawtooth edge on here. So, and I noticed as I looked at this photo, there was some drops of water because the leaves had been in a little glass jar. And I may even want to put those in there, or this little piece that had fallen off. So it's great to see some damage, get a leaf that's a little damaged or that has a bit of a wormhole in it. On this one here, those are nice. Artists love those little imperfections. It makes it more interesting. Okay, so now I'm ready to do the impressed line. I'm going to take that magazine, and of course it's Blick, and I'm going to set a piece of tracing paper over this leaf here. And I'm going to take my red ballpoint pen, and I'm going to really study what's going on here. On the veins. So I'm going to push really hard. And I notice the vein kind of curves and it goes to the end of the peak of each section of the leaf. And then it comes right down to the stem. And I'm really, you know, my muscles are popping out on this. So you want to really push hard. You're actually denting and damaging the paper. And you can't undo this. So be pretty sure of where you're going to put this. And how it's going to look. Got a little bit of a curve there. So I've got the main leaves. Now I can go ahead and put those secondary veins in here, like we see them here. And I'm paying attention. They don't necessarily fall right across from each other. You want to watch for those kinds of things. So I'm going to put some of those in. And I'm continuing to look at my reference. Even if I had drawn these in, I'm always looking at the reference to make sure I'm not losing what's really happening there. Now, it doesn't matter if it's exactly perfect because nobody's going to really look at that, know what that original leaf looks like. And I'm not going all the way to the edge of the leaf because I notice those veins don't do that. And they actually almost connect to each other. So when I pull that away, I can kind of feel that, but it's really going to pop up once I get the next color in there. So I'll do the same to this little guy here. And again, I'm going to study the leaf from my reference. It's okay if I move this, as long as, you know, I'm getting everything where they belong on the veins. And I can go ahead and put some secondary. It probably wasn't a good idea to move it. Okay, so let's pretend I did that good. I think I better get another. There we go. Now in this one, I was kind of assuming the veins would be white, so I left this the color of just the white of the paper. I didn't put a base color in first. So we'll see how all of these look differently. And I'm going to speed it up a little bit, just so. I may have messed this up a bit. Okay, this may have all kinds of wacky rings because I moved the the tracing paper. Okay, so now I'm looking at this, and this is a great opportunity to get a wonderful rich tone here. So what's the complementary color of green? Well, we know it's red. So this is kind of a purpley reddish brown. So I'm going to get a sort of a purpley red, and this happens to be Crimson Lake, and here's a color called purple. Let's see. Here's mulberry, and it's a good idea to have a little test paper here so you can see what mulberry looks like, which is a nice purpley red. And here is the purple, it's pretty dark. And here's Crimson Lake, which is kind of a orangey red. And I'm gonna find Process Red. That's a good one. That's a sort of a pinkish red. So who knows? I'll just try a combination of some of these different colors. And what makes purple? Well, blue and red. So I may end up needing some blue in there too. So here's ultramarine. So let's just see how this goes. I'll start with the Crimson Lake. And here you can see I'm just gently stroking on some color here in back and forth direction. And I'm resting my hand on the paper so I'm relaxed. And you can see the veins starting to appear. Now in this part of the leaf, there's actually, let's see if we can see it, there's a lot of green showing through still, so I may not want to even push all the way. I might want to leave some of that green. Now down here, where it's more yellow. So I would continue on this back and forth, filling it in smoothly with the red. It doesn't have to be an overall layer. I can change and start to move into a different red right here. Here, let's get in with the mulberry. And I want to get that edge, that little bit of a sawtooth edge there. So you can see that with every color, those veins are still hanging in there. Let's try that ultramarine blue and see what happens here. We'll start to turn it a little more purple because blue and red make purple. I'm getting some layers. Or I can take the colored pencil that is called purple. And it's fun to kind of let your colors show through, kind of like if you were doing watercolor wet into wet. And I'm checking out those little variations in the edge here. I wonder what's going to happen if we use the colorless blender at this point. So I'm going to take the Prismacolor colorless blender and start to go over it, and it still is showing up those veins, if not more so. Okay, and I think I can still go a lot darker and get in there with more purple or blue. Okay, so I'm building up some rich color there. Let's see what happens on this. Let's take this is process red, and maybe crimson red, and poppy red. Let's try poppy red here. And so now we're getting veins that look yellow. And this will definitely call for multiple colors, because it's not just orange. And then there's some damage because it's late in the season and we're getting some darkening of the edge, so we can go in with blues. And I just love the way those veins magically pop in there. Let's get in with a little more of a different kind of red here. And how about some blue right on the edges here to show that aging, that nature working its way into the winter a little bit more. Now this was reading very orange, but if I use orange, it might be a little too yellowy because of that yellow base. Remember, every color you put down, it's gonna mix with the color that's underneath it. So I might want to stick with a more of a red color. Here's process red. Okay, so that's how that would keep going. And then this one was basically green. Now I could actually use real green. What a concept. But I like to mix colors. So I have different greens here. There's one. Here's one. Here's one. So all these different greens that I can go with. This one is dark green. So I think I will start in with, yeah, I like that one. That's grass green. So let's just start layering that. And now we get white veins. Now there's nothing that says you couldn't go in later and take a little pencil if you wanted to make them a little more yellow and go right into that channel. And see how, I don't know, it's hard to see, but I've created a slight bit of yellow now instead of pure white. But I'm also going to layer some yellow over this to give that that green a little richness. And I can do yellow and blue. Let's get, in order to make it a brighter color, I'm going to use more of a turquoisey blue, like a cerulean. So here's the mixture of yellow and blue, and ta-da, just like mixing paint, you get that secondary color by mixing the two primaries. If I put the blue all by itself, it's just going to be blue. And as you guys found out in your mixtures, as soon as you mix them together, it turns that secondary color. Okay, so I could keep going and going and then put in some cast shadow. It's always fun to do sort of a blue cast shadow. And you don't necessarily have to leave the background white. And let's dull that with a little bit of orange. Complementary color. And that'll make more sense once I get the whole leaf filled in. Okay, so I believe you can do this assignment, and I think I'm going to leaf you to it. So have fun with your leaves, and we'll see you in class.